Now we're talking to Brad Sertz from Corporate Communications of Audi America. How are you, Brad?
Good. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. And a very interesting topic, and something that has been very popular in the past almost now years. I mean, believe it or not, autonomous driving. And Audi received this week some kind of permit from the state of California to keep improving on the test that Audi has been doing for years now, right?
Correct. We were the first company to get the permit that California now requires to do testing on state roads. So we're very excited about that because we have a significant research lab in California where a lot of our U.S. testing takes place.
Okay, so that's in Silicon Valley, right?
Correct. It's in Belmont, California.
Yeah. So Audi has been in the technology road ahead of the way in many aspects. So there's a lot of technology that it's leading into the autonomous driving in cars that people can buy today.
Yeah. Well, autonomous driving is a subject that a lot of people are excited about, but also a lot of people misunderstand. The level of technology that we're looking at bringing out within 5 years is calls for highly autonomous driving, where the car is doing the driving in traffic jam conditions on a freeway. And the way that's happening is with a number of sensors and systems that are already in today's cars, working together in harmony with some new software upgrades and computing power. So some of those systems include adaptive cruise control, side assist, lane keeping, and things like that are really features in today's luxury cars and others.
Yeah, but Audi has already done testings, very impressive testings. I think you did the Audi TT Pikes Peak car that drove up a hill on its own for like 27 minutes or something like that, right?
Correct. Yeah, we've really been our researchers have been at the forefront of kind of the modern era of autonomous driving, going back since the days that the Defense Department issued a grand challenge to kind of spur innovation about a decade ago. So, and you mentioned one good milestone, which was when we took a car without anybody in it all the way up the route of the Pikes Peak Hill climb at a fairly rapid pace. And since then, we've been developing pre-production technologies that are poised to hit the market in a few years.
Yeah, and at this point, even though it's a very advanced what you already have proven in tests, there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of legislature and infrastructure, correct?
Yeah, correct. That's absolutely right. Right now, the federal government and the various state governments really haven't adopted a uniform approach to how autonomous driving should be handled, what sort of restrictions or regulations should be around it. That's the same thing with foreign governments in Europe and elsewhere. And to be honest, autonomous driving in some of its forms requires infrastructure improvement so that the highway lines and the markings are consistent and all that. So I think there's still a lot to be done on the government angle to be prepared for when the technology is at a point where it could be introduced.
Yeah, and in this aspect, car manufacturers are always seems to be way ahead of that, right? I mean, because you have the technologies not only for this kind of thing, but also for other alternative fuels and things like that. And so it takes a while. I mean, your engineers and designers work more ahead of what can government do, right?
Right, and we're constantly looking for technologies that are going to make the joy of driving even more joyful. And so this is something that we're continuing to work on. But the other thing that's happening is that the pace of innovation in the electronics industry is accelerating at such a rate where you have just significant amounts of computing power that weren't available just a couple years ago. We're looking at our technology ultimately to be employing a supercomputer on a chip. So you're basically going to take just a couple of years ago, computing power that took an entire trunk of a station wagon is now going to be about the size of a laptop computer and easily tucked away in the car so it doesn't gobble up all the trunk room or other space of the car.
Yeah, and that would not only impact the capability of the car in terms of what it can do, let's say autonomously driving, but also probably the design of cars, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of the things that we've made a big point of is to provide autonomous driving, piloted driving, we call it, functions without a lot of intrusive or sort of sensors all around that would kind of ruin the natural flow of our car's design. So you really, unless you see a sticker on the side of our cars or maybe a couple other sensor points, you wouldn't actually know it is autonomous driving capability. So we want to keep it in a package that's pretty familiar to the kind of luxury cars people want today.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of working with other companies, I know Audi has a good relationship with Google through their maps and like this amazing navigation system that Audi cars have now. So it's Audi working with other manufacturers or other companies to be able to create these autonomous driving levels whenever they're going to come out in 5-10 years or something like that?
Yeah, there's a number of sensor companies we're working with. NVIDIA has been our longtime partner for technology and chips. So they're the ones producing the supercomputer and the chip K1 that will provide the computing power for all of our advanced driver assistance. You mentioned Google, but actually Google and us are on a little bit different path in terms of where the technology is going. So we're not actually working together on autonomous driving, more on the Google Earth mapping and some other things. But there's a number of partners that we work with because they're constantly innovating to make sensors less expensive and more compact in size, and camera and vision companies. So there's a number of electronics companies we work with.
Yeah, and in terms of communicating with other cars, I know that obviously other manufacturers are doing this same kind of testing and experimenting. Is there anything that is being homologated into like one common language, let's say, for vehicle-to-vehicle communication for the future of this kind of driving?
Well, we're working with a number of automakers in a joint project to do that with the U.S. government. But where we're going to start off with is a system that doesn't require other cars to communicate. So the car itself will be able to see a 360 view of its environment and really handle all the functions of itself. And the reason for that is, we've said this should be available or ready for potential consumer use within 5 years. And we don't think that the infrastructure that the governments have, or there will be a sufficient number of cars available to make that kind of car-to-car or car-to-infrastructure communication work immediately.
Yeah.
Now, when that critical mass hits, that's something that would be really an added influence and help to the technologies we're developing now, but we're not exactly counting on it to be ready right at the start.
Yeah, and taking into account that like the average age of the cars out on the roads in the U.S. is 11 years. I mean, and you said technology is advancing so fast, so a car that is even like 5 years old will be completely obsolete to communicate with other modern cars, right?
Right. It'll take a while for a sufficient number of cars on the road to be able to communicate with each other, but that time should come, and we want to be ready when it is here to implement that with our what we're developing on piloted driving now.
Yeah, and Brad, in terms of people who are not very keen to this idea and thinking that they are gonna take the pleasure of driving or the control of driving, I mean, there's always gonna be a car that is gonna be completely maneuvered by the human being, right?
Right. Our system, what we're envisioning right now, is not too different from what you have now with cruise control, where if you hit the accelerator or the brake or grab the steering wheel, the car will disengage. But there's a lot of misunderstandings. We feel that it's important not to get too far ahead of what people are comfortable with.
Yeah.
And that's why we're basing our first system, the traffic jam pilot, on a lot of the features that you find in today's cars. We're probably a human generation away from the time when you'll be able to let the car do absolutely everything, if not more. There's still a lot that has to happen in terms of the raw computing power to handle that many decisions in just microseconds that we just as humans intuitively understand. So that work will continue, but we're not going to be sitting in the back seat having coffee while we go to work.
Although some people will like that today, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So we're talking to Brad Sertz from Audi corporate here in the United States. And Brad, you mentioned like the closer link between car manufacturers and technology. And Audi has been present at the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas for a few years now, right? And so I guess some of this technology will be shown there in November? I mean, in January, I'm sorry.
That might be something you could think about. We haven't quite settled on our program for CES, but we will definitely have a significant presence there, as we have for the last couple of years. And piloted driving and piloted parking have really been kind of showstoppers at CES, which has now become a bit of a high-level auto show globally.
Yeah, amazing.
Because of this marriage between the technologies that we're using in our cars and the electronics industry.
Brad, so is there a webpage where our audience can go and find out more about all these advances that Audi is making?
We have some information on AudiUSAnews.com and also on AudiUSA.com.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Brad, and I hope to see you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Este programa fue una producción de National Latino Broadcasting.